Hey everyone, this is Carbonite, bringing you yet another match from Sunday's case tournament at Project CCG. Unfortunately, this is going to be another matchup for me. Once again, I am playing Maelstrom on the right, and I'm facing off against a youth player on the left. So as you can see, I am going first here. Kind of a lot of the things that I mentioned in the last video are going to be applying here. So if you haven't checked that video out, I would recommend go watch that one before this, because I probably won't mention a lot of the things that I did in that video. Anyways, doing something a little bit different here. In the last video, I actually decided to take the grade 1 youth attack. This time I decided to just guard it. I believe the reason for that is because I have another 15k shield in my hand, so I am less worried about his grade 2 turn, because definitely youth can call out a bunch of different things during their grade 2 turn, meaning that if they hit a defense, if they hit a trigger, guarding gets a little bit awkward sometimes, especially with things like Schneisel, as we're going to be seeing in a little bit. But anyways, going into my grade 2 turn, swinging, drive checking a Prize Trident. Currently in the list, I was playing Prize Trident, but honestly, I don't really see it being that great of a card for Maelstrom. Like, sure, the counter charge is fine. It really just like kind of allows you to play around being damage denied, but honestly, sometimes just like the attack order gets a little bit awkward, or sometimes you actually want to be using the Prize Trident to boost or attack for the 5th time, and obviously he can't do that. So if I were to replace it, honestly, maybe even swapping out for something like a Clipping Dragon, if we really need the counter charge. But I honestly don't think it's overly necessary Maelstrom, mostly because you need like 1 CB to get 4 attacks, and you need 2 CB to get like 6 attacks. But depending on whether or not you have Wheel Assault, really just changes up how much CB you really need. Anyways, going back into the youth's turn, we do see the Schneisel coming down using the skill. I believe we added a gust off that. Anyways, this is kind of what I was talking about, where the Schneisel is going to be getting an extra 5k. So I'm thinking about the way I want to guard here. I'm thinking if he swings the Schneisel first, I just throw down a 15k to block it. If he swings with the Vanguard first, I'll also be throwing down a 15, basically taking the attack that comes second. I think this is a pretty decent pattern, because if you were to get like say a trigger here, that would be hitting for 15. If for a critical, that would be a 2-card guard, no matter what. But thankfully we don't see any of that, so I'm just going to be taking the Schneisel attack, going to the one that I need in order to actually do my plays. Riding into the Maelstrom, once again, we do get the top 7 search. Basically, I'm looking for a piece that I don't have. As you saw in my first turn, I discarded the Inlet Pulse Dragon, so we're going to be able to revive that with the set order that we searched out last turn. So calling out that Tidal Assault. And it looks like we're just going to be playing that order, which is a pretty typical play, calling back out that Inlet Pulse. Now, we do see me doing something very similar to what I did last turn, which is calling out the Wheel Assault. As we're going to see, I'm actually going to take that back, mostly because I'm realizing that the entire reason you call the Inlet or the Wheel Assault is basically just to hit a better number. But in this case, it really doesn't matter, because even if that Wheel Assault is boosting the Tidal Assault, it's only be hitting for 18, which is not over defensive. So in this case, since I am against Youthberk, which is a deck that does have removal, I think it's better to not commit it quite yet, because committing it really doesn't make a difference, as we saw in the last game. He hit a defensive, and even boosting with the Wheel Assault made no difference. Anyways, we're going to be starting off those attacks. Inlet Pulse swinging first. It doesn't really matter what I swing at here. A lot of times I like swinging at the rears to like kind of deny defensives, because he just intercepts with it anyways. It's a 5k shield. Pretty standard, decent play, I would say. But now we're going to be swinging that Tidal Assault. Hopefully we don't see a defensive on the damage, but unfortunately we do see that critical trigger, meaning this Tidal Assault is going to be having to swing at nothing. If he hadn't hit that defensive there, we would have been able to threaten another damage and call out some more shield, but unfortunately we didn't get it, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, swing with that Vanguard, getting the draw off the 4th battle, since I swung for nothing with the Tidal Assault, and we are going to be seeing one of my favorite things to do. I always like swing with the rears first, and then even if they get a defensive, a lot of the times most people will no guard the Vanguard, thinking like, oh, what are the chances he gets a trigger? And I always love just hitting critical triggers and then just like forcing them to take even more damage, because as you can see, he is pushed to 4 now, which technically does give him a lot of counterblast for his next turn, but at the same time, when you don't want to be at high damage against a multi-attack deck. Anyways, going first, I was able to basically set up my the optimal board that you want to be sitting on with Maelstrom, which is having that inlet pulse in the soul, which means that you are able to just recycle it every single turn. When you are playing Maelstrom, your first grade 3 turn, the thing you want to be aiming for the most is getting an inlet pulse into soul, because that means that the inlet pulse can come back out, and it's getting the skill from Maelstrom during your next turn, where it's actually able to be the first attack and swing at the Vanguard for a nice 23 if you're on Persona Ride, or even just 13 or 18 depending on what's going on with your other cards. Anyways, not really talking about what Youth is doing, because it's going through the motions of typical Youth play, calling out 2 Therapy Angels, calling out a Witch, basically building up your very typical Youthberk play. Using the Counterblast, I believe he added the Schneisel back. I could be incorrect, but I'm sure you guys caught it while I was rambling on. Anyways, looks like we are going to be calling out the Schneisel once again. Probably thinking on that skill, because we are already down 2 Counterblast, and we don't have any Anuculets looking around. And I don't think my opponent was actually playing them, so he is kind of playing fast and loose with his CB. He is at a fairly high decent damage count, so damage now really isn't too much of a thing to worry about. And I will say that honestly, you really don't have to worry about damage denial when you're playing against Maelstrom, because a lot of the times they do need to do swings. Of course, there is doing something like swinging under, but at the same time, I'm going to be having to swing if I want to be getting that advantage off Maelstrom. I'm definitely going to be swinging with the Vanguard to get my twin drive. So you really don't have to worry about it as much. But honestly, I don't know how I feel about my opponent just like kind of blasting through all the counterblasts. Like we see, he's already used 2 this turn off the ride line skill, another for the Schneisel. This time adding a Persona Ride, it looks like. So that's going to be pretty lethal for next turn. But anyways, as I said in the last game, I am sitting at 1 with this first grade 3 Youth turn, so I'm not really sweating it at all. Probably just going to be taking this first Vanguard swing as I usually do. I don't really care if he gets a crit. In fact, even if he gets a crit, that's good for me, because that means that I can easily just guard every single other attack without really having to worry about committing or dangerous things. But as we see, I'm going to be getting OT here, so it doesn't really matter, because just going to be giving all those effects to the Vanguard. So basically this turn is null, which in this case is really not the greatest thing, because I really wanted 2 CB so that I could use both Tidal Assault and the Inlet Pulses skill that it gets from Maelstrom in order to do like 6 attacks next turn. But of course, he's not going to be able to damage me unless he hits his own OT here. So I am going to have to go into my next turn with just the 1 CB anyways. He is going to be going for the Tempest, using that last Counterblast, which is honestly a little bit scary, especially since you are at 4, and that means you are only going to be getting 1 more damage, face-up damage, since you don't have any counter charge. Just going to be swinging at the Tidal Assault, getting a front trigger. So we did see a total of 3 triggers going out that turn, which definitely not something great. I mean, it's great shield value, but it is a lot of triggers out of deck, and they are basically all just wasted in that turn. Anyways, getting back to me, Persona riding into that Maelstrom. This next turn would be a whole lot more lethal if I did actually have that 2 damage. I would probably be able to push for game here, although at the same time, Youth has a massive hand. We already know he has 3 triggers in hand. So honestly, pushing for game this turn probably wasn't in the cards. But I do have a really good chance of just whittling away at that massive hand that Youth is basically able to farm up. Anyways, we're going to be seeing me playing another Judgment Maelstrom, just calling back that Tidal Assault that he killed last turn, calling another Inlet from hand and 1 from soul. So we are going to be getting at least, I believe that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attacks, and if we have a Wheel Assault, that can become a 6th attack. And we are going to be seeing me here calling that Sylvan Beast. I forget its name, but what its effect is you basically just retire it and give something 10k, which is obviously super good for multi-attack decks. This one in particular. I am only playing it as a one of right now, because I feel like it's kind of a win more card. It doesn't really do much unless you have the combo pieces and you don't want to be seeing too many of them. But it is definitely really helpful. As you can see, this is a 38 attack, swinging into the Vanguard, which is going to be swinging twice. Unfortunately, we do see a defensive there, which is really annoying. But at the same time, you know, I wasn't planning to win this turn anyway. So we're probably just going to spend this turn doing a little bit of cleanup, swinging that Inlet Pulse again, because I obviously don't need to worry about using the Tidal Assault skill because I don't have any CB. So I can just easily commit my second attack to the Inlet Pulse's second attack. So once again, this is just a really nice number. I think I forgot to mention it earlier, but I did actually give the extra 5k from the Judgment Maelstrom to that Inlet Pulse, so it is actually swinging for 38 once again. So now we're going to be swinging with that Tidal Assault, giving the extra 5k to Maelstrom, so it hits 28. Even though he is under defensive, that 28 makes it a nice magic number, so if he guards with a 15k shield, that is a 1 to pass. So this is going to be hitting for 28, swinging at, believe, at the Vanguard, which is going to be calling for still another 15k shield or a 10k shield. I'm going to be using that Wheel Assault skill to swap my two inlets. And now for the fourth attack, I'm going to be swinging with that Maelstrom, drawing the card, and deciding what to retire. So when it comes to retiring, a lot of what I like to do is retire the intercepts, because what I'm trying to do, especially in this youth matchup, is I'm trying to get him to commit those Therapy Angels to the front row. As we can see, he already has one in the front row, so that's I'm already halfway there. But the reason for that is just because Schnizel's an intercept, which means he's shield, but Therapy Angel can't intercept, which means if he gets a defensive, I can just swing at them and there's nothing he can do to get it off board. And then if he doesn't do anything, then I can always use Maelstrom's skill to retire it. Thankfully, a lot of my numbers were really nice this turn, especially those 38s and 28s. So he wasn't really able to effectively guard with a Schnizel, meaning that it was just left there open for me to just snipe out with that my Maelstrom skill. Anyway, swing for that 28. It's going to be guarded for 48, which is going to be a no pass since my OT is out. I'll be drive checking a Elementario as well as another Judgment Maelstrom, which, given the fact that I already have 2 copies in the order zone, is going to be giving an extra 10k when it comes down during this next turn. Just going to be swinging that Inlet Pulse. It is a 5k guard. So I had considered going into the Therapy Angel instead to just do some cleanup, but I figure 5k guard, it is a lethal swing, so I pretty much might as well try and get some shield out of him. He has to guard it if I swing at the Vanguard, whereas if I swing at the rear guards, he can just let it die. And even though it does lessen his attack, it's a lot less pressure on him. Anyways, because as we did see, he did commit that extra 15k guard. So it looks like my opponent here is kind of a little bit stressing for playables. We are going to be seeing that Persona Ride that we saw added last turn, discarding an extra copy of Gust, because we can see a whole ton of Revolve forms in his hand from those last couple turns. And a lot of his shield was actually used in my last turn, if you noticed. If you can take a look at his hand, there really isn't that much shield value yet left. But anyways, calling off that Schnizel from the Youthberk. Probably thinking about whether you want to use that skill, because you do only have the 1 CB, and once again you are at 5, meaning that you're not going to be getting any more CB after this. But it looks like he decides to skip out on the Schnizel skill, probably wanting to use that Tempest skill. And he's going to be swinging for 23. Once again, I am at only 2, so I'm not really worried at all of him hitting a critical trigger here, because it's not going to kill me, obviously. But unfortunately, we do see the worst thing in heal, which means once again he is able to get another damage face up. So playing for damage now isn't really going to work now that he has another extra damage that he's going to be able to be getting. We do see me hitting a nice defensive there. So this Tempest is going to be coming down, revealing a grade 1 and a grade 2, just like last game. However, he is going to have to decide which one of the two he wants to be putting to the bottom of the deck. At this moment, it really does not matter which one he does, because we do know I have the Judgment Maelstrom. Whatever he bot decks, I am just going to be able to revive another copy from the drop zone. I believe in my hand I do have another Wheel Assault and another Tidal Assault, so I really don't care what he puts back, because I can always just like call out another one either from the drop zone or from my hand. So I'm really not stressing that skill. But what I am stressing is that he did get that heal, which means my plan to try and kill him next turn is not really going to work out, because he is going to be at 4, and we did see that Tempest just kind of giving him more cards in hand, just that free advantage that Youth just keeps making. Anyways, thanks to that defensive, I'm just going to be able to guard this Schneisel with a nice 15k guard. This Tempest is going to be swinging for a nice 33. Deciding what I want to do here, probably just going to take it because he only has 1 drive check, so even if he hits a critical trigger, that's not going to be able to kill me. Swinging this Therapy Angel for, I believe that's another 35, which thanks to defensive is just going to be another 15k guard. So moving back into my turn, I believe I have a pretty nice setup. I don't think I have Persona Ride, but of course I do have the nice 2 CB, so I can call a Tidal Assault as well as the Inlet Pulse from the Soul, and that gets me my 5 attacks. And if I have another Inlet Pulse or the grade 3 Tear Dragon, that just means I can do 6 attacks with the ability to just stack triggers on to the last 2 attacks. So looks like I'm just going to be discarding an extra copy of Wheel Assault from my hand just to call out that Inlet Pulse. And then I am considering whether I want to commit a Tidal Assault from hand, or whether I just want to revive the Tidal Assault that I discarded earlier in the game. Looks like I am going to be discarding the one, or reviving the one from the drop zone using the Judgment Maelstrom, and actually giving the extra 10k to it, just to make it hit a nicer number. And we're going to be seeing that grade 1 from the last game, which is going to mean that my Inlet Pulse is going to be able to swing for 18 twice. So this Inlet Pulse is going to swing, the grade 1 skill is going to activate since it's the first attack. It's going to be going up for 8 to 8, which means this is a 10k guard. Looks like we're just going to be taking it. Thankfully, thank the gods, there are no defensive this time, which means all of my attacks are hitting for really nice numbers, and that Inlet Pulse can actually hit once again. So swinging at the Tidal Assault, which is going to call for another 10k shield, the second attack, so it restands itself. So I've got a full front row ready to continue my attacks. So I think I'm going to actually ooh, I know what happened here. I forgot to use the Tidal Assault skill, which, as we're gonna see, doesn't actually really matter, but at the same time, it does. You do really need to remember those things. But swing with the Inlet Pulse for another 18. Going to be guarded with the Verde, which is pretty good. Swing the Maelstrom for a clean 20. Retiring the Schneisel. Once again, the same logic. In a pretty good position here, just because I can stack whatever triggers I get onto that Tidal Assault, which is already hitting for a very nice number of 28. So any triggers I get onto it are going to make it an even better attack. And both of these attacks are lethal now that he is at 5. So I'm just, at this point, I'm just trying to get rid of as much cards from his hand as possible. But as we are to see, OT is going to be coming down to block it, which is why it doesn't really matter that I forgot to use Tidal Assault skill. In fact, it just leaves me an extra soul for next turn. Although you really don't need that much more soul in Maelstrom, because you kind of just do build it up just by doing your regular plays. Going to be swinging for that Tidal Assault for a nice 28. Once again, not swinging at the rear guards. Just to, obviously, I mean, we're swinging for game here, so we kind of have to. Going to be seeing him commit both a Therapy Angel and a trigger to block that, which is, I don't know how many times I've said this, but the fact that you can make such nice magic numbers in Maelstrom really is one of the things that makes me love the deck so much. Anyways, going to this next turn, I am at 4, so things are a little bit scary, especially with a Persona Ride being the first thing we see. But I have really taken out a lot of the rear guards and a lot of the Schneisels, and at this point Youth is starting to run a little low on gas. As we can see, he only has 1 base up CB. Not really too much that we can do, but we do see him using the Youthberk skill, searching out another copy of Gust, which is honestly just another one of the reasons why Youth is such a good deck. The ability to just like filter and deck thin at the same time is just it's just like so much better than a lot of the decks are able to do. Anyways, it looks like we're gonna be seeing the last CB committed to that Schneisel actually. Even though I believe there's still one more Tempest in hand, and we actually do see a Tempest off the Schneisel. But obviously we are going to be adding the Gust because we cannot actually use Tempest anymore because we are completely out of CB. So I'm assuming he's probably going to try and push for game this turn, because I think you kind of have to. If you notice, that deck he's shuffling is getting very thin, so this game is getting very much closer to its end one way or another. So it looks like we are going to be committing yet another Witch, which is the third Witch coming on down. Going to be pretty deadly combined with that Gust, getting double Twin Drive, effectively making the same advantage as Tempest does, but just in a different way, less board control, a little bit more pressure. Are out of good rear guards to actually call down and swing, because even though we are under that Therapy Angel, that is only a 20, which is a 10k guard, which is not as good as this Gust that he's going to be calling out, which is going to be hitting for a 33. So anyways, I am at 4, which means that if he does actually hit a critical trigger here, I am dead. So I'm just going to be PGing that with the Elementario, using it first because it is not going to be free at any point. And we do see another heal, which I was really hoping to end things next turn, but obviously with this heal, that's not going to be happening. So it looks like it's going to be another turn of just grinding this game out. So anyways, looks like we are going to be using that Revoldress going into the Gust, obviously because we can't use Tempest anymore. Using the Witch's skill to slide itself into Soul, setting the Gust's drive to 1, and then using the Gust's skill itself to discard a Therapy Angel, which is going to be popping back onto the field to boost the Gust, as well as giving the Gust an extra 10k and +1 drive, which is honestly just an insane combo. But at this point in the game, really does not matter because I've been able to farm up enough resources that I've actually seen, I believe, all my PGs once again. So this Gust is going to be swinging at me for a really big number, 23, 33, 43, but it is just going to be met with a PG from me. So I'm not really stressing, but what I am stressing is this drive check, which is a third heal trigger, which is just so infuriating. And it is at this point in the game when I realized, okay, I kind of have to change my win condition. I'm no longer going to be able to deal the 6 damage. I look at the size of his deck, I look at the size of my deck. He's definitely going through his deck a lot faster than I am, and of course he hits the front trigger. So at this point, I am giving up on actually dealing the 6 damage, and my new win condition for this game is going to be deck out, because as we see, he is making way too much advantage. Even though I probably could punch through his defenses within a couple of turns, within those same couple of turns, he is going to run out of deck. So I figure my best play is to helmet up as much as possible, push as many cards out of his deck as I can, and just survive his turns, and get him to deck out. Because this Schneisel, thanks to those 2 triggers, is going to be swinging for 40. Let's see, that's a 45, 55. Unfortunately, I didn't get defensive off that last hit of Gust. So I am going to be having to commit 45 points of shield. That's going to be 30, 40, 45. That's going to be a 58 point guard. 4 cards to guard that Schneisel. But at this point, I just have to kind of play for the deck out because he is at 3. I am now at 5. And my ability to actually kill him is just going slowly disappearing. So it looks like I am just going to be... My goal here is basically to... I have two things that I'm going to be trying to do. 1, I want to eliminate his rear guard so that he can't really attack me and I can easily survive his next turn. And 2, I want to deal him as much damage as I can, not because I'm trying to get him to 6. No, the reason I'm trying to deal him damage is because I want him to deck out sooner. So I'm going to be hitting him for 18 at the Vanguard. Either forcing out some cards from hand, or trying to force some cards out of deck. So it looks like we are just going to be taking it, which is thankfully not hit with a nice defensive, which means I can threaten more damage, whether I'm going, since I'm going for that deck out potential. Swinging once again for the 18. I can't use Tidal Assault because I don't have any more CB, so I might as well just swing with the 18. Swinging the Tidal Assault, boosting, using the skill of Tidal Assault to Soul Blast out the inlet, giving an extra 5k to my Vanguard, so it's hitting for a much nicer number. And it looks like this attack is actually going to be going to the Schneisel. As I said, my other goal is to actually eliminate the rear guards and kind of just make it so that he can't really do anything to try and kill me on the last turn, because with the size of his deck, he is not going to be able to do anything. As we see here, I do kind of swing at the Gust, but then I change my mind and decide, oh, let me just get the guaranteed retire, because even if he pushes up those Therapy Angels, they won't be able to hit unboosted, and if he Persona Rides, well, that's just another card out of the deck for me, because I believe at this point we are at 4 cards left in deck, and we are going to be seeing a heal trigger, which is very nice, but really does not matter because my win con here is to deck him out, and we see my last Persona Ride coming in, which is probably not going to be used because the game is probably going to be finished on the next turn. Anyway, swinging the Inlet Pulse at the Vanguard, not really expecting to hit, kind of just either using up cards or from hand or deck, because the less cards he has in hand, the less he can attack me, and the less cards he has in deck, the less things he can do. If he really only has 4 cards in deck, that means he can't even do any drive checks. Of course, using the 2 Inlet Pulse, because even though my deck is getting kind of thin, I definitely don't go through it as fast as Youthberk does. So I am definitely winning in that race. And not to mention, he did put a card on the bottom of my deck, so he deck thickened for me, which I am definitely grateful for at this moment. So looks like we are just going into the turn. If we take a look at the hand, I think we have 2 PGs and a Gust in hand. So it looks like we're just going to be calling out the 2 PGs in one last desperation play, keeping the Gust in hand. Swinging with the Vanguard for 23. I'm just going to say no to that, and we're just going to PG that. We're going to be drive checking 1, a PG, the last PG, and drive checking 2, a critical trigger, which is going to be given to one of the rear guards, because obviously you can't give it to the Youthberk because it's not even hitting. And it looks like we are actually just going to be going for the Gust. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Not actually using the Gust skill because we only have 1 card left in deck, which means if we drive check, we do lose. So he's going to be swinging for just a pitiful 13, and that's just going to be hit with an intercept. And then this PG is going to be swinging for a pitiful 26, which I barely realized, oh, that's a 15k guard. So with that is going to be the end of the game because there is 1 card left in deck. So all I have to do is draw for turn, pass, and that is my game. All right. I know that was a long one, so I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next one. Go ahead and do all that YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe.